Hello, everybody, and happy Saturday. Welcome into another edition of Before the Sandstorm here on Gamecock Central. I'm Kendall Smith, joined alongside of the one, the only, Wes Mitchell. You just deserve that great of an intro, Wes. It's game day. Are you excited? Georgia here in Columbia to take on South Carolina. It's going to be a big day.
Yeah, number one team in the country. It's a sellout. What is there not to be excited about? Gamecock fans, they don't seem to be in a great mood this week, Kendall. I don't know. There is a blueprint where South Carolina leaves with a win. Percentages, admittedly, not high, but it could happen.
I mean, it's always good to be the underdog, right? You mentioned that there's a blueprint to win, and that's why you play the games. I mean, obviously, there's no predetermined winner when you go into these games. We've seen 1,000 times these upsets happen, and South Carolina could very well do that today against Georgia. So you mentioned that blueprint, Wes. What will it take for South Carolina to earn the win today?
Yeah, I think it's going to take a lot, obviously. Every great underdog upset, I think, comes with a few different things that kind of play out every single time. Turnovers, you got to win the turnover battle. You got to win the red zone battle. I think if Georgia's kicking field goals, which they actually did against Samford, surprisingly, last week, and South Carolina scoring touchdowns, then that's a blueprint for them. And then you also have to have some luck as well. Like, fans don't like to think how much luck plays into sports, but you obviously have an oddly shaped football. It can bounce many different ways. So a little luck on your side. And I think South Carolina needs to start fast. We've talked about that. It's an easy key to victory to say. It's harder to actually go do it. But they've not really started fast in first quarters. This fan base is going to be there. They're going to be looking for something to cheer for. You got to keep them in this game early on, I think.
So, Wes, you mentioned the defense needing to step up. You mentioned South Carolina needing to win that turnover battle. And unfortunately, this week for South Carolina, some very, very terrible news. Two of their top defenders missing the rest of the season in Jordan Strawn and Mo Kaba. So a couple guys stepping up for them. Let's get a little injury report here from you. And then who are some of those guys that you're really looking out for this week to step up big for South Carolina?
Yeah, first of all, you feel awful for Mo Kaba and Jordan Strawn out for the year. Two guys that were captains, in each of the first two games, and two guys that really have just worked hard to put themselves in position to start for this team. Other guys are now going to have to step up. Shirai Green will be the starting linebacker again. Obviously, he has experience. Gilbert Edmond at the edge position for Jordan Strawn. First career start we're expecting today. And, it's kind of one of those things where it can go both ways. It's an opportunity for him. He's really had a good offseason and stepped into a backup role, but now he's going to be asked to do a lot more. Can he step into that spot and excel? Can the guys around him, maybe step up a little bit to help him out, but without trying to do too much? I think you want your guys to still be able to play within themselves and not feel like they have to maybe take on part of somebody else's role as well. Then you throw in an injury report that has gotten longer and longer as the season has gone on. Several guys that are still questionable for today's game. Cam Smith, obviously one of their better players on defense. Boogie Huntley, questionable. David Spalding, questionable. R.J. Roderick. This is not the South Carolina defense that they started the season with. So I think it was going to be tough to slow down this Georgia offense anyway. It becomes even tougher with several guys either being out or questionable to the extent that even if they play, they haven't gotten their normal practice time this week. So fans hate excuses, but it is a reality that Carolina's going to need some guys who came in as backups this year to step up and play really well for them today.
Yeah, lots of guys needing to step up for South Carolina, and no bigger stage to do it on than ESPN at noon. And Shane Beamer has mentioned it several times. Kickoff actually not taking place until 12 p.m. today because ESPN wants to showcase the environment that will be at Williams-Brice Stadium this afternoon. So huge opportunity for these guys.
Yeah, huge opportunity. Really kind of cool that they want to feature the atmosphere at Willie B. I thought it was one of the better opening weekend atmospheres we've seen for the Georgia State game a couple of weeks ago. We'll see, Beamer, I feel like he challenged the fan base. Like, nobody cares that it's a noon kickoff. Nobody cares that it might be hot. Nobody cares that it's the number one team in the country. He wants you in the stands, in your seats early, and trying to help out this team. It's going to take a complete effort. If you were going to knock off the number one team in the country, you got to have everybody, including the fans, pulling in the same direction. And that's why I go back to starting quick. Can South Carolina, just any type of early score to just hang in the game would go a long way, I think, for keeping the energy in the building. And then we've talked about it all week long. The number of recruits that are going to be on campus too, Kendall. You want for them to be leaving saying, man, that was one of the best atmospheres I've ever seen.
Yeah, we mentioned it a little bit earlier in the week on the recruiting rundown. So if you want some more in-depth analysis on recruiting that's going to be happening today for South Carolina, go check that out on GamecockCentral.com. But the environment's so important. South Carolina not only looking to win a battle on the field, but multiple recruiting battles happening between South Carolina and Georgia as well off of the field. Not to mention the fact you've got Nicholas Harbor in town, 5-star recruit for South Carolina in the class of 2023. So just how big is this weekend, Wes, in this game for South Carolina's recruiting?
I think it's massive to compete. You know, you don't have to knock off Georgia. You don't have to beat the number one team in the country to impress prospects. Now, if you can go out there and compete with Georgia, have a great atmosphere, give recruits sort of that little idea of, man, they're just a couple of players away and I could maybe be that player. That's what, obviously, you want to win the game if you're South Carolina. But if you don't win and you can show prospects that, then I think that goes a really, really long way. Nicholas Harbor, obviously the name on the tip of the tongue of every Gamecock fan out there. He has already made it to Columbia. He's on campus, and just a huge opportunity for South Carolina there. Like almost the entire committed class for 2023 will be on campus as well. They, of course, are going to help recruit Harbor to South Carolina, build those relationships. But then it's a great start to the 2024 class as well. Mazio Bennett from Greenville, 4-star kid, was also in for the Georgia State game. He's back. Cam Pringle is expected back. Josiah Thompson is expected on campus. So you've got a lot of your top in-state targets that are expected at the game as well. So huge opportunity for South Carolina across the board. To me, you got that from Beamer on Tuesday. Like, you could tell how important this is from a recruiting standpoint. And, again, even if things kind of don't go perfectly on the field right off the bat, it's important for these guys to see an atmosphere and see the fans stay and stick it out and hang in there and not just sort of get quiet if things don't go well right off the bat.
Well, I mean, let's face the facts. Everybody this weekend has to be on their A game, whether that's the coaching staff, whether that's the actual players, whether that's your recruiting staff trying to impress these recruits that are going to be coming out and going to these various events that South Carolina football is going to be putting on for them. So just a huge weekend. And we talked about it a little bit earlier, defenders that you think need to step up. But I want to talk about the offense just for a quick second before we get out of here. Obviously, people are going to say Spencer Rattler. He needs to step up this week. People might want to see more from him, but who are some of those other guys on the offense that have got to step up for this to be a successful game against Georgia?
Yeah, you know, I think South Carolina's got to find more ways to get Jaheim Bell involved and involved to the extent that he can make a real impact. Like, we have seen what he can do when he's allowed to take over a game, and it's easier said than done. Like, it's not just you snap your fingers and you get him the football, you know, down the field. But to me, if we're sitting here at about 4:30 this afternoon saying Jaheim Bell went off and had his best game of the season, that would be a good sign for South Carolina. I think we saw last week what Juice Wells can do. Like, I think he's going to be a fairly consistent part of this passing game. But if they can add Jaheim Bell into that mix as well, I think Stogner is still an excellent target as like that third or fourth guy. So if you get Bell back involved, I think that's a great step for South Carolina. And then the running game itself, like not any one particular guy, but they need to find a way to let these backs get into a rhythm, get Marshawn Lloyd involved, not just in the passing game, but in the running game as well. It's going to take a balanced effort on offense for them to win this game. But Kendall, I have this weird feeling that South Carolina is going to move the football a good bit better on offense than people are expecting. This is not the same Georgia defense as last year. They've looked really good so far, but I don't feel like they have been tested yet. So you have a bunch of new guys. I think they only returned 3 starters from last year. So getting Spencer Rattler into a rhythm, spreading the ball around, and then just putting the game on his shoulders could be the recipe for South Carolina. I don't see this being like a 13-9 type game. Like, if you're going to win the game against Georgia this week, you're going to have to go score some points. It's going to have to be like 38-35, 38-34. It's going to be one of those games that's just a classic if they're going to win it. It's not going to be like a grinded out, low-scoring game, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, that's where the audience comes in, right? Shake them up a little bit, make them a little bit nervous when you've got a lot of those newer guys for Georgia that haven't probably experienced something like Williams-Brice Stadium in that capacity. That's when you really get the fans involved. And we know so many of you are going to be out there at Williams-Brice Stadium today. You probably are wondering where in the heck we are. I don't think I mentioned it at the beginning, but we are here at Steel Hands in Casey, South Carolina. So just right down the road from Williams-Brice Stadium. We're going to be doing a little tour here on Before the Sandstorm. So next week, should we tell the people where we're going to be, Wes?
Yeah, let's go ahead and tell them. We won't make them wait.
All right, we're going to be at Soda City. So if you're out next week here for the Charlotte game, Wes and I will be out there, so you can come check it out, maybe make your cameo appearance on Before the Sandstorm. But we love being here with y'all on game days before kickoff. We love getting to talk about the game, do a little pregame show, the premier pregame show, we should say, for South Carolina football. And we appreciate all of you watching. So again, kickoff today set for noon Eastern time between South Carolina and the #1 team in the country, the Georgia Bulldogs. Wes, as always, appreciate your insight. Go enjoy the game today and have some fun, right?
Yeah, you too, Gamecock fans. We'll see you after, you and Colin, after the Sandstorm, right?
Yes, that's right. That's a perfect plug. Myself, Colin Taylor, will be back after the game for After the Sandstorm. Until then, head over to GamecockCentral.com for more. Follow us on Gamecock Central's social media pages at Gamecock Central. We will see you all soon. For Wes Mitchell, I'm Kendall Smith. This has been Before the Sandstorm on Gamecock Central. Happy game day, everybody.